The space station called Nexus Prime had never seen so many ships in one place. Thousands of alien vessels filled the darkness around Earth's solar system like angry metal clouds. Each ship carried weapons that could destroy cities. Together, they carried enough firepower to turn planets into dust. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive council chamber. His blue uniform looked simple compared to the strange clothing worn by the aliens around him. Some aliens had scales that changed color. Others floated in clear tanks filled with green liquid. A few looked like walking trees with too many eyes. Jake kept his face calm even though his heart was beating fast. Behind him stood Commander Lisa Hayes and Dr. Kevin Lang. Lisa's hand stayed close to her weapon. Kevin held a small device that recorded everything the alien said. The chamber was so big that Jake could barely see the far walls. Hundreds of alien species sat in rows that went up like a giant stadium. Each species had fought wars across the galaxy. Each one had conquered other worlds. Now they all worked together as the Galactic Council. At the front of the chamber sat the most important aliens. Their leader was a creature called Zixithara. She came from a race called the Valerians. Her body looked like it was made of living crystal. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music played on glass bells. "Human representative," Zixithara said. Her words came out in perfect English. The aliens had studied human languages for months. "You stand before the greatest alliance in galactic history. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. We have brought peace to over 1,000,000 worlds." Jake said nothing. He had been ordered to listen first, then speak. "Your species is young," Zixithara continued. "You have only just learned to travel between stars. You know nothing of the dangers that exist in deep space, creatures that eat entire planets, wars that can destroy solar systems, weapons that can make stars explode." An alien that looked like a giant spider clicked its many legs together. This meant agreement in its language. Other aliens made their own sounds of approval. Growls, chirps, and noises that hurt human ears. "This is why the Galactic Council exists," Zixithara said. "We protect young species from these dangers. We guide them. We teach them how to live in peace." Dr. Kevin Lang whispered something to Jake. Jake nodded but kept watching the alien leader. "Today we offer humanity a great gift," Zixithara announced. "We offer you protection, safety, a place in our peaceful galaxy." She raised one crystal arm. The chamber became completely quiet. Even the strange breathing sounds from the aliens stopped. "These are our terms," Zixithara said. "First, humanity will give up all military ships. You do not need weapons under our protection. Second, humans will move to worlds we have chosen for you. These are good worlds with rich soil for farming. Third, all human technology will be shared with the Council. Our scientists will study your knowledge and improve it." Jake felt his jaw tighten. He had expected these demands, but hearing them still made him angry. "In return," Zixithara continued, "humanity will receive our protection, our guidance, our wisdom. You will become part of the greatest civilization in the galaxy. Your children will grow up in a universe without war." The alien leader's crystal body began to glow brighter. This was a sign of pleasure in her species. "We have made this offer to over 300 species," she said. All of them accepted with gratitude. All of them now live in peace and happiness under Council rule. An alien that looked like a walking tree spoke up. Its voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Some species tried to refuse our generous offer. They chose war instead of peace. They no longer exist." Other aliens made sounds of agreement. Jake noticed that many of them had weapons, energy guns that could cut through metal, devices that shot bolts of lightning, tools that could probably kill a human in seconds. "We do not wish to harm humanity," Zixithara said. "But we cannot allow a dangerous species to threaten galactic peace. You have seen our fleet. You know you cannot fight us. Accept our terms, and your people will live." The chamber filled with the sound of alien voices. They spoke in hundreds of different languages, but Jake could guess what they were saying. They thought humans would surrender immediately. They expected gratitude for their generous offer. Commander Lisa Hayes moved closer to Jake. She had studied alien body language for years. Most of the creatures in the chamber looked relaxed, confident. They thought this meeting was just a formality. Jake looked around the chamber one more time. He saw beings that could fly without wings. Creatures, with skin like metal. Aliens with more arms than a human could count. Each species had technology beyond human understanding. Each one controlled dozens of worlds. The logical choice was obvious. Surrender. Accept the terms. Let humanity become farmers on alien worlds. Jake Morrison took a step forward. His boots made a sharp sound on the crystal floor. The sound echoed through the chamber. Every alien eye, sensor, and optical device turned toward him. Admiral Morrison of the United Earth Federation, Zixthera said, "Have you reached a decision?" Jake straightened his shoulders. He thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who were counting on him, about cities full of children who deserve to grow up free. "The United Earth Federation has considered your offer," Jake said. His voice was strong and clear. "We appreciate the time you have taken to present your terms." The aliens leaned forward. They expected the word yes. They expected surrender and gratitude. "Our answer is no," Jake said. The chamber exploded with sound. Aliens jumped to their feet. Some roared in anger. Others chittered in languages that sounded like breaking glass. A few made noises that could only be described as electronic screaming. Zixthera's crystal body stopped glowing. "I believe our translation systems have malfunctioned," she said. "Please repeat your response." "You heard correctly," Jake replied. "Humanity rejects your terms. We will not surrender our ships. We will not abandon our worlds. We will not give up our freedom." "This is impossible," said an alien that looked like a floating jellyfish. "Young species always accept council protection. It is the logical choice." "Logic is not the only thing that matters," Jake said. An alien covered in spikes stood up. Its voice sounded like grinding metal. "You fool, do you not understand what you are choosing? We offer you life, you choose death." "We choose freedom," Jake replied. "If that means death, then we will die free." The chamber erupted again. This time the sounds were different. Not just anger, but confusion. Fear. The aliens had never encountered a species that would choose certain death over surrender. Dr. Kevin Lang stepped forward. "The human species wishes to make one thing clear," he said. "We do not want war. We would prefer peace. But we will not accept slavery disguised as protection." "Slavery?" Zixthera's voice rose in pitch. "We offer you paradise, safety, guidance, from beings far wiser than your primitive minds can comprehend. You offer us cages," Commander Lisa Hayes said. "Pretty cages, but cages nonetheless. Humans do not do well in cages." Jake looked around the chamber one final time. He saw anger on alien faces, confusion, something that might have been respect from a few of the older species. But mostly he saw disbelief. "Let me make our position clear," Jake said. "Humanity will defend itself. We know we are outnumbered. We know you have better weapons and bigger ships. We know we will probably lose." He paused and looked directly at Zixthera. "But we will make you pay for every human life you take. We will make this war so costly that you will remember us for 1,000 years. And maybe, just maybe, we will find a way to win." The silence that followed was complete. Not one alien made a sound. They stared at Jake Morrison as if he had just declared his intention to fight the laws of physics themselves. "So be it," Zixthera finally said. Her crystal body had turned completely dark. "The Galactic Council hereby declares humanity a threat to galactic peace. You have chosen extinction." "We have chosen to remain human," Jake replied. As the three humans left the chamber, alien voices began to rise behind them. Planning voices. Angry voices. Voices that spoke of war and destruction and the swift end of a foolish young species. None of them suspected that they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. High Counselor Veltar had lived for over 2,000 years. In all that time, he had never heard anything as funny as what had just happened in the council chamber. The ancient being's laughter sounded like rocks grinding together in an earthquake. Species of primitives thinks it can fight the combined might of the galaxy, Veltar said to his aide. His species, the Kethmaran, had been the first to join the Galactic Council. They had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. I have not been this amused in centuries. Around the strategy table sat the military leaders of a dozen major species. Each one commanded fleets that numbered in the thousands. Together they controlled more firepower than any single species could imagine. Admiral Thexnar of the Krieger hegemony pulled up displays showing Earth's solar system. The Kriegers were a warrior race that had conquered 40 systems before joining the Council. They understood military strength better than most. Look at this, Thexnar said, pointing at the holographic display. 12,000 ships. That is their entire military. My personal fleet has more ships than their entire species. General Kixathala of the Mantis Collective clicked her razor-sharp claws against the table. Her species had evolved from predator insects. They had turned war into an art form. Their largest ship is 800 meters long, she said. My flagship is 4 kilometers long and carries weapons that can crack moons. How do they expect to fight us with such toys? Commander Beth Rogers sat quietly at the end of the table. She was the only human in the room, serving as a liaison officer. The aliens had insisted on having a human present to help with translation and cultural understanding. Now she listened to them plan the destruction of her species. Tell us about human military capability, Admiral Thexnar said to Beth. What weapons do they have that we should fear? Beth looked at the displays showing Earth's defenses, nuclear missiles, kinetic projectiles, laser weapons, energy shields. Everything looked primitive compared to what the aliens possessed. Humans are resourceful, Beth said carefully. They adapt quickly to new situations. The aliens around the table made sounds that Beth recognized as laughter. Different species laughed in different ways. Some chirped, others growled, a few made electronic beeping sounds. Resourceful, repeated Admiral Thexnar. How resourceful can they be? We have weapons that can destroy planets. We have shields that can stop supernovas. We have ships that can travel between galaxies. Dr. Susan Blake was another human in the room. She served as Earth's chief scientist and had been studying alien technology for months. The aliens had allowed this as part of their effort to understand humanity before the war began. What is your assessment of human chances? Asked General Vexmore of the Titan Empire. His species stood 3 meters tall and had skin like living metal. They had never lost a war in their 1,000-year history. Humans have certain advantages, Susan said. They think differently than most species. They use unconventional tactics. Unconventional tactics cannot overcome superior numbers and technology, Veltar said. Mathematics does not lie. One Galactic Council dreadnought has more firepower than their entire fleet. The holographic display showed the massive alien ships gathering around Earth's solar system. Some were shaped like giant crystals. Others looked like mechanical sea creatures. A few resembled floating cities with weapons instead of windows. How long will this war last? Asked Admiral Ixanal of the Serpent Alliance. His species had learned to speak by studying the sounds of dying prey. My commanders wish to know when they can return home. 3 days, Admiral Thexnar said without hesitation. Perhaps 4 if the humans have hidden some ships, but no longer than a week. I calculate 6 days maximum, agreed General Kixathala. That includes time to hunt down any survivors who try to hide in asteroid fields. The aliens began dividing up human territory among themselves. The Krieger hegemony wanted the outer planets for mining operations. The Mantis Collective claimed rights to Earth's oceans for their underwater cities. The Titan Empire wanted the moon for use as a military base. What about the human population? Asked Dr. Mordak of the Science Directorate. Do we relocate them or eliminate them? Some can be kept as specimens, Veltar said, for study purposes. The rest will be relocated to agricultural worlds as originally planned. Beth Rogers felt sick listening to them discuss her species like livestock, but she kept her face calm. She had orders from Earth Command to gather as much intelligence as possible. The humans showed great foolishness today, said Admiral Thexnar. But they will learn wisdom when our weapons begin firing. Most species surrender after losing their first few ships. What if they do not surrender? Asked General Vexmore. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Veltar laughed again. Then they will die, he said simply. And the galaxy will learn what happens to species that refuse Council protection. Captain Roy Carter had been listening from the observation deck above the strategy room. He commanded the Council's rapid response fleet. His job was to handle species that might cause trouble during the integration process. I volunteer to lead the advance fleet, Roy said as he entered the room. My ships can end this before it really begins. Excellent, Admiral Thexnar said. Take 3 battle groups. That should be more than enough to destroy their defenses. 3 battle groups to fight 12,000 ships? Roy asked. Are you certain that is sufficient? The aliens looked at him with surprise. 3 battle groups meant over 900 ships. Each ship carried enough weapons to level a continent. Captain Carter, Veltar said slowly, you are suggesting that 900 Council ships might not be enough to defeat 12,000 primitive human vessels? I want to be certain, Roy replied. Humans have a reputation for being unpredictable. Their reputation is based on primitive conflicts against other primitives, General Kixthala said. They have never faced real military technology. They have never fought against species that have mastered war. Dr. Susan Blake cleared her throat. If I may make a suggestion, she said, perhaps it would be wise to study human military history before engaging them in battle. We have studied it, Admiral Ixnal said dismissively. Primitive chemical weapons, crude nuclear devices, kinetic projectiles that move slower than our fastest shuttles. There is nothing to fear. What about their tactics? Susan asked. What tactics could possibly work against superior technology? Admiral Thexnar replied. Courage cannot stop antimatter warheads. Bravery cannot penetrate quantum shields. Beth Rogers decided to try a different approach. What about morale? How will your crews react to fighting an enemy that refuses to surrender? My warriors live for combat, General Kixthala said. They will consider it good training. Council forces have fought hundreds of campaigns, Veltar added. Our soldiers are professionals. They follow orders regardless of enemy behavior. The meeting continued for several more hours. The aliens planned their attack routes, assigned target priorities, and calculated supply requirements. Everything was precise and methodical. They had done this many times before. One more question, Beth said as the meeting was ending. What happens if humans use tactics you have never encountered before? Impossible, Admiral Thexnar said. We have fought every type of enemy. Pirates, rebels, primitive species, advanced civilizations. There are no new tactics left to discover. Besides, Veltar added, humans are not the first species to choose death over surrender. They all died just the same. As the aliens filed out of the strategy room, Beth and Susan were left alone. They looked at each other with expressions of barely controlled fear. They have no idea what they are walking into, Susan whispered. Should we warn them? Beth asked. Susan was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head. They would not. Listen, she said. And maybe it is better this way. Maybe they need to learn about humans the hard way. Outside the station, the massive alien fleet continued to grow. Ships arrived from across the galaxy. Each one carried weapons designed to fight enemies that followed the accepted rules of warfare. Enemies that valued their own lives. Enemies that would surrender when defeat became certain. None of them had ever fought humans before. Admiral Thexnar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the distant blue dot that was Earth. In 3 days, he would begin the attack that would end humanity's brief moment of defiance. His ships would demonstrate the price of refusing Council protection. Prepare the fleet for combat. Operations, he ordered his crew. This will be over quickly. Behind him, his tactical officer pulled up the attack plans. Precision strikes against military targets. Overwhelming force applied at key points. Standard Council doctrine that had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. The officer made a note in his log. Enemy expected to surrender within first day of combat operations. He had no way of knowing that he had just written the biggest underestimate in galactic military history. The attack began at dawn on Luna Base. Admiral Curtis Webb watched the alien fleet approach through the observation deck of humanity's primary defensive station. The enemy ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of Earth's sun. "Contact in 30 minutes, reported Captain Helen Torres from her fighter squadron. Enemy fleet consists of 900 vessels. Largest ships are 4 kilometers long. Curtis had commanded Luna Base for 10 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and rogue colonies, but he had never faced anything like this. The alien ships dwarfed anything in the human fleet. Their weapons could probably destroy Luna Base with a single shot. "All human ships, this is Admiral Webb," Curtis said into his communication device. "Remember your orders. No surrender, no retreat. Make them pay for every meter of space." The human fleet spread out around Earth's moon. 12,000 ships against 900 alien vessels. The numbers looked good until you considered that the smallest alien ship was bigger than humanity's largest dreadnought. Captain Nick Johnson commanded the destroyer UES Defiance. His ship carried a crew of 200 humans and enough weapons to level a small city. Compared to the alien vessels approaching them, it looked like a toy. "Sir," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Jerry Adams, "alien ships are in range, waiting for orders to fire." Nick looked at the display showing the enemy fleet. Each alien ship bristled with weapons he could not identify. Energy cannons that glowed with strange light, missile launchers that looked big enough to hold shuttlecraft, shield generators that sparkled like captured starlight. "All weapons open fire," Nick ordered. The space around Luna erupted with light and destruction. Human missiles streaked toward the alien fleet in waves of fire and steel. Laser beams cut through the darkness like deadly rainbows. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic launchers. Admiral Thexanar watched the human attack from his flagship with amusement. The primitive weapons bounced harmlessly off his shields. Energy beams scattered against quantum barriers. Physical projectiles disintegrated before they could reach his hull. "Is this their best effort?" he asked his tactical officer. "Apparently so, sir," the officer replied. "Our shields are at 98% strength. No damage reported across the fleet." "Begin return fire," Thexanar ordered. "Target their largest ships first. Let us show them the difference between real weapons and primitive toys." The alien counterattack was devastating. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the Council fleet, each shot powerful enough to vaporize a human destroyer. Exotic matter warheads exploded against human shields, creating tears in space itself. In the first 10 minutes of battle, humanity lost 300 ships. "Damage report," Admiral Webb called out as Luna Base shook from near misses. "Heavy losses across all squadrons," reported Commander Lisa Hayes from the Tactical Center. "Enemy weapons are penetrating our shields like they are not even there." Curtis watched human ships die on his display. Each dot that disappeared represented 200 lives lost. 200 humans who would never see their families again. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Billy Foster from the sensor station. "Enemy missiles incoming. Time to impact, 40 seconds." Curtis could see the alien weapons on the main display. They moved faster than anything humans had ever built. They changed course to avoid defensive fire. They seemed to think for themselves. "All defensive systems engage incoming missiles," Curtis ordered. Luna Base's defensive grid came alive. Laser turrets tracked and fired at the alien weapons. Interceptor missiles launched from hidden silos. Electronic jammers tried to confuse the incoming warheads. Most of the alien missiles got through anyway. The explosions shook Luna Base like an earthquake. Emergency lights flickered as power systems overloaded. In the medical bay, Dr. Kevin Lang worked frantically to treat wounded personnel. "Structural damage to sections 7 through 12, reported Chief Engineer Amy Watson. "Life support is holding but barely." Curtis knew that Luna Base could not survive another attack like that. The alien weapons were simply too powerful. Humanity's best defenses were like paper walls against their technology. That was when Captain Helen Torres did something that changed the entire battle. Instead of retreating or trying to find better cover, Helen turned her fighter directly toward the largest alien ship. Her small craft accelerated to maximum speed, heading straight for the enemy flagship. "Torres, what are you doing?" Curtis demanded over the radio. "Something they will not expect," Helen replied. The alien point defense systems tracked her fighter and opened fire. Energy beams lanced out to destroy the tiny human craft. But Helen did something no alien pilot had ever done. She flew straight through her own side's weapons fire. Human ships were firing everything they had at the alien fleet. Laser beams, missiles, and kinetic projectiles filled the space between the two forces. Flying through that storm of weapons was suicide. Helen Torres flew through it anyway. Her fighter took dozens of hits from human weapons. Its armor melted, its shields failed, but she kept flying, using the chaos of battle as cover against alien targeting systems. "I have a clear shot at their flagship," Helen reported. Her voice was calm despite the fact that her ship was falling apart around her. "Take it," Curtis ordered. Helen fired every weapon her fighter carried directly into the alien ship's main engine. The explosions were tiny compared to the massive vessel. They should not have done any serious damage. But Helen had noticed something during her suicidal approach. The alien shields were designed to stop large, powerful attacks. They were not, configured to handle dozens of small impacts at the same target point. Her weapons punched through the alien shields and damaged the engine core. Admiral Thexanar felt his flagship shudder as the human fighter exploded against his hull. The damage was minor, but the tactical officer was reporting something impossible. "Sir, our rear shields have failed," the officer said. "A single fighter craft somehow penetrated our defenses." "Impossible," Thexanar said. "One primitive fighter cannot damage a Council dreadnought. The human pilot used our own targeting algorithms against us," the tactical officer explained. "Our shields focused on large threats and ignored the small craft." Across the battlefield, other human pilots saw what Helen Torres had accomplished. They began copying her tactics, diving through fields of weapons fire to get close to alien ships. Captain Danny Price led a squadron of bombers against a Council cruiser. Instead of attacking from long range, he brought his ships close enough to touch the enemy hull before releasing his weapons. "This is insane," reported his wingman, Lieutenant Carl Brooks. "We are flying inside their shield perimeter." "That is the point," Danny replied. "Their shields cannot stop us if we are already inside them." The human bombers released their nuclear warheads at point-blank range. The explosions destroyed both the human ships and the alien cruiser. But humanity had dozens of bombers. The aliens had only expected to face enemies who valued their own survival. Admiral Thexanar watched in horror as his fleet began taking real damage. Human ships were ramming his vessels. Pilots were ejecting nuclear weapons manually when their targeting systems failed. One human destroyer detonated its entire reactor core to destroy an alien dreadnought. "What kind of species fights like this?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," his tactical officer replied. "Our databases contain no reference to such tactics." The turning point came when Captain Nick Johnson's destroyer was crippled by alien fire. His ship was dying, his crew was dead or wounded, and enemy reinforcements were moving to finish him off. Any rational species would have surrendered or retreated. Nick Johnson did neither. "All remaining crew to escape pods," he ordered over the ship's communication system. "I am going to ram the enemy flagship, sir," reported his engineering officer, Lieutenant Pete Rogers. "The reactor core is already unstable. If we push it any harder, the explosion will destroy everything within 10 kilometers. "Perfect," Nick replied. The UES Defiance turned toward IUE, Admiral Thexnar's flagship, and accelerated to ramming speed. The alien ship's weapons fired continuously, tearing the human destroyer apart piece by piece. But Nick kept flying, using manual controls when the computer systems failed. "Admiral," the alien tactical officer reported in panic. "The human ship is on a collision course. Its reactor is about to overload." "Evasive maneuvers," Thexnar ordered. But the massive alien flagship was too big to turn quickly. The UES Defiance slammed into its hull just as the reactor core exploded. The blast tore through the alien ship's armor and destroyed its main weapon systems. For the first time in Council military history, A primitive species had crippled a flagship using nothing but determination and explosive fury. "Retreat," Admiral Thexnar ordered as his ship limped away from the battle zone. "All ships withdraw to safe distance." The surviving alien vessels pulled back, leaving the space around Luna Base littered with wreckage from both fleets. Humanity had lost over 4,000 ships, but the alien fleet had lost nearly 200 vessels, and their flagship was heavily damaged. More importantly, the aliens had discovered something that terrified them. Humans did not fight like any species they had ever encountered. They ignored their own survival. They used tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They treated death as an acceptable price for victory. Admiral Curtis Webb stood in the ruins of Luna. 3 months after the Battle of Luna, the Galactic Council was facing a crisis unlike anything in their 10,000-year history. What should have been a quick police action had become a nightmare that consumed resources and shattered military doctrine across the galaxy. High Counselor Veltar stood before the emergency assembly, his ancient form trembling with rage and confusion. Around him sat representatives from 300 species, all demanding answers to impossible questions. "How is this possible?" demanded General Kixathala of the Mantis Collective. "We have sent 12 battle fleets to human space. Each fleet was larger than the one before. All have suffered heavy casualties." Admiral Ixnal of the Serpent Alliance pulled up holographic displays showing the current military situation. The data made no sense according to everything they understood about warfare. "Human forces now control 17 star systems," he reported. "They have established defensive positions inside stellar coronas, asteroid fields, and areas of space we declared impassable. Our latest intelligence suggests they are using black holes as tactical advantages." "Impossible," stated Dr. Mordak of the Science Directorate. "No biological life form can survive the radiation levels found in stellar coronas. The gravitational forces near black holes would crush any ship." Colonel Andy Price's voice came through the communication system from the Kepler front, where human and alien forces had been fighting for 6 weeks. His report made the assembled aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. "The humans are not following established laws of physics," Andy transmitted. "Yesterday, a human fleet appeared behind our defensive line after traveling through a region of space our scientists claimed was impossible to navigate. They used solar flare activity to supercharge their weapons and destroyed 3 of our dreadnoughts." And the chamber erupted in alarmed voices. Several species demanded explanations from their scientific advisors. Others questioned whether the humans possessed technology beyond council understanding. "Order," Veltar commanded. "There must be a logical explanation for these events." Dr. Rachel Lewis appeared on the main communication screen, transmitting from somewhere in human-controlled space. Her image flickered with electromagnetic interference that suggested she was broadcasting from an extremely dangerous location. "Greetings, Galactic Council," Rachel said calmly. "I am Dr. Rachel Lewis, speaking for the United Earth Federation. I understand you have questions about our recent military operations." "Where are you transmitting from?" demanded Admiral Thexnar, whose flagship was still undergoing repairs from the Luna battle. "Currently, I am aboard the research vessel UES Discovery, which is conducting operations inside the corona of the star you call Kepler 442, Rachel replied. "The stellar environment has increased the efficiency of our thermal weapon systems by 300%. The alien scientists in the chamber began chittering in distress. Broadcasting from inside a stellar corona was not just impossible, it was suicidal. The radiation alone should have killed any biological life form in seconds. "You are lying," Dr. Mordak declared. "No ship can survive in such an environment." "Human ships can," Rachel replied simply. "We have made certain modifications to our designs. We discovered that if you are willing to accept a 90% casualty rate among your crew, you can build vessels capable of operating in extreme environments." The silence that followed this statement was absolute. Every alien in the chamber stared at the screen in horror. A 90% casualty rate was not an acceptable loss. It was mass suicide. "Why would you sacrifice so many lives for a minor tactical advantage?" asked General Vexmore of the Titan Empire. "Because it wins battles," Rachel answered. Human mathematical analysis indicates that losing 90% of one crew to destroy an entire enemy fleet is an acceptable trade ratio. Admiral Thexnar felt his blood turn cold. The humans were treating their own lives as expendable resources. They were calculating acceptable loss rates the way normal species calculated fuel consumption. "This is barbaric," he said. "This is war." Rachel replied. "You declared it. We are simply fighting it according to human doctrine." Fleet Commander Zeknal of the Voidwalkers had been listening from his position near the outer rim of Council space. His forces had been tasked with preventing human expansion, but the enemy kept appearing in places where no ships should be able to travel. "Explain how your ships move through regions of space that our best scientists declare impossible to navigate," he demanded. Rachel's image flickered as another solar flare erupted around her ship. When the transmission cleared, she was smiling. "Human pilots do not accept the word impossible," she said. "When your scientists say something cannot be done, our engineers ask how much they are willing to risk to do it anyway." "Risk what?" Zeknal asked. "Everything," Rachel replied. Captain Sam Rodriguez provided a perfect example of this philosophy later that day. His unit had been tasked with capturing a Council supply depot that was defended by 2 full battle groups. The depot was located in a heavily fortified asteroid field that the aliens considered impregnable. Sam's solution was to modify mining equipment into weapons and attack through the asteroid field itself. His ships dug tunnels through the largest asteroids, emerging inside the alien defensive perimeter. "This is madness," reported the alien commander as human forces appeared from solid rock. "Ships cannot tunnel through asteroids." "Human ships can," Sam replied over an open communication channel. "We welded mining lasers to our hulls and reinforced the crew compartments. Half my ships were crushed during the tunneling process, but the other half made it through." The alien commander surrendered the supply depot rather than fight an enemy that treated solid rock as a minor navigation hazard. Similar reports were coming in from across the war zone. Human forces were ignoring fundamental principles of space combat. They flew through radiation fields that should have been instantly lethal. They used supernovas as navigational markers. They treated phenomena that aliens considered natural disasters as tactical opportunities. "How is this possible?" Veltar demanded during another emergency session. "Our computer models show that humanity should have been extinct within the first month of the war." Dr. Susan Blake, the human scientist who had been studying alien technology, provided the answer that would haunt the Council for generations. "Your computer models assume that humans would fight the way you fight," Susan explained. "They calculated acceptable loss rates, strategic withdrawals, and surrender conditions based on alien psychology. They did not account for human stubbornness." "Explain stubbornness," demanded Dr. Mordak. "Humans have a psychological quirk," Susan continued. "When told that something is impossible, we become more determined to do it. When faced with certain death, we look for ways to take our enemies with us. When given a choice between surrender and extinction, we choose extinction." The economic implications were becoming catastrophic. The Council had budgeted for a quick police action, not a prolonged war against an enemy that seemed to grow stronger the more desperate their situation became. Treasurer Kexalam of the Commerce Guild presented his latest financial report to the Assembly. The numbers were devastating. "The war has cost the Council more resources in 3 months than we typically spend in 3 years, he reported. 27 member species have formally requested loan extensions. 15 have threatened to withdraw financial support if the conflict continues. "End the war quickly, then," General Kixthala said. "Send enough ships to crush human resistance in a single decisive battle." "We have tried that approach," Admiral Ixnal replied wearily. "The humans do not concentrate their forces for decisive battles. They scatter across impossible terrain and force us to hunt them down one ship at a time." Lieutenant Commander Chris Evans had become a legend among both human and alien forces. His single fighter craft had somehow infiltrated heavily defended Council installations on 3 separate occasions. Each time he had broadcast messages that demoralized alien crews and inspired human resistance. "How does one fighter penetrate our most secure facilities?" demanded Admiral Thexnar during a strategy meeting. By doing things that should kill the pilot, reported his intelligence officer. Evans flies through black hole event horizons, emerges from hyperspace inside planetary atmospheres, and uses stellar gravity wells as slingshots. Our defensive systems cannot track a target that ignores the basic laws of physics. The psychological impact was becoming as devastating as the military losses. Alien crews were beginning to show signs of stress disorders. They had been trained to fight enemies that followed logical tactical doctrine. They were not prepared to face opponents who treated their own survival as irrelevant. Dr. Mind Healer Tixara of the Empathic Circle submitted her report on Council military morale. The findings were alarming. 47% of Council personnel are showing symptoms of combat fatigue, she reported. They report difficulty sleeping, loss of appetite, and irrational fear of human tactical capabilities. Many express belief that humans possess supernatural abilities. Supernatural abilities? Veltar asked. They believe humans can survive anything, appear anywhere, and ignore death. 6 months after the war began, the Galactic Council was in complete chaos. Emergency evacuation orders were being broadcast across 17 star systems. The greatest military alliance in galactic history was collapsing under the weight of fighting a species that refused to follow any logical pattern of warfare. High Counselor Veltar stood in the ruins of what had once been the most secure command center in the galaxy. Half the Council's leadership had fled to emergency bunkers in distant systems. The other half sat in stunned silence, watching their civilization crumble before their eyes. Status report, Veltar demanded, though he dreaded the answer. Admiral Thexnar looked like he had aged 100 years in 6 months. His flagship had been destroyed and rebuilt 4 times. His fleet had been reduced from thousands of ships to a few hundred survivors. Human forces have captured or destroyed 47% of our forward operating bases, he reported. They have established permanent positions inside 3 different stars and are using black holes as weapons platforms. Our latest intelligence suggests they have learned to weaponize supernovas. That is impossible, Dr. Mordak protested weakly. No species can control stellar phenomena. Tell that to the humans, replied Fleet Commander Zeknel from his position near the outer rim. Yesterday they triggered a solar flare that destroyed my entire patrol fleet. The energy release was precisely timed and targeted. Either they can control stars, or they are the luckiest species in galactic history. The truth was that Captain Roy Carter had discovered something remarkable about human engineering. When you removed all safety protocols, ignored radiation exposure limits, and accepted that your crew would probably die, you could build ships capable of incredible things. Report from the Vega system, transmitted Dr. Alice Stone from her position aboard a human research vessel. We have successfully established a mining operation inside the event horizon of a black hole. Temporal dilation effects are allowing us to process materials at an accelerated rate. The alien scientists listening to this transmission sat in stunned silence. Mining inside a black hole was not just impossible, it was a violation of everything they understood about physics and sanity. How many casualties? Asked Admiral Thexnar. Acceptable levels, Alice replied. We lose approximately 1 crew every 6 hours to temporal shear effects, but the productivity gains justify the investment. Veltar felt something that the Kethmoran species had not experienced in 1,000 years. Pure, overwhelming terror. The humans were not just fighting a war. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of existence. What do you want from us? He asked during an open transmission to Earth. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on the communication screen, broadcasting from the bridge of humanity's newest flagship. Behind him, the view screen showed a battle-scarred Earth surrounded by the wreckage of alien fleets. We want you to leave us alone, Jake said simply. That is all we have ever wanted. Surely we can reach some accommodation, Veltar pleaded. Some compromise that allows both our species to coexist. You declared war on us, Jake replied. You gave us a choice between slavery and death. We chose death, but we decided to take you with us. The psychological impact of 6 months of impossible warfare was visible in every council strategy session. Military commanders who had never lost a battle now jumped at shadows. Scientists who had spent centuries studying the laws of physics were questioning everything they thought they knew. "The humans have done something to our computer systems," reported Chief Technician Bexlar during an emergency technical briefing. "Our battle simulations keep producing impossible results." "Explain," demanded General Kixathala. "According to our computers, human forces should have been extinct 4 months ago," Bexlar said. "They have suffered casualties that exceed their total military strength by 300%, yet they keep fielding new ships and crews. The truth was that humanity had mobilized in ways the aliens could not comprehend. Every human who could hold a weapon had joined the military. Civilian shipyards were working around the clock to build vessels that violated every safety regulation ever written. Children as young as 16 were piloting fighters into battle zones that seasoned alien veterans refused to enter. Lieutenant Commander Chris Evans had become a nightmare that haunted alien dreams across the galaxy. His fighter had penetrated 43 different secured installations, delivering psychological warfare attacks that demoralized entire fleets. "How is he still alive?" demanded Admiral Yixnal during a strategy meeting. "We have killed him dozens of times." "Apparently not," replied his intelligence officer. "Latest reports show him operating near the Centauri system, using a pulsar as a navigation beacon." "Using a pulsar?" Yixnal asked weakly. "The radiation would kill any biological life form in minutes. Human pilots seem to have developed immunity to conventional radiation poisoning," the officer reported. "Either that, or they simply do not care about dying." Captain Sam Rodriguez provided another example of human adaptability that defied all logic. His engineering corps had been tasked with building a forward base in the Rigel system, but the location was inside a nebula filled with corrosive gases that dissolved any known metal within hours. "Problem solved," Sam reported to his superiors. "We built the base out of crystallized human bone." "Bone?" asked General Roy Carter in disbelief. "Turns out that human calcium phosphate structures are resistant to the corrosive effects," Sam explained cheerfully. "We collected skeletal remains from battlefield casualties and used them as construction material. The base is now fully operational." The alien forces monitoring this conversation felt their morale collapse completely. The humans were building military installations out of their own dead. They had crossed every line that separated civilization from barbarism. "They are insane," whispered Admiral Thexanar to his aide. "They are all completely insane." The economic situation had moved beyond catastrophic to apocalyptic. Treasurer Kexlam presented his final report to what remained of the council leadership. "Total war expenditures now exceed the combined gross domestic product of all member species," he announced. "We have bankrupted ourselves fighting an enemy with a fraction of our resources." "How is that possible?" Veltar demanded. "Human tactics require us to replace our entire fleet every few weeks," Kexlam explained. "They destroy our ships faster than we can build them. Meanwhile, they somehow continue fielding forces despite suffering impossible casualty rates." The truth was that human industrial capacity had been transformed by desperation and innovation. Factories that once built civilian products were now producing military hardware. Ships were being constructed with minimal armor and maximum firepower, designed to operate for days rather than decades. "We are building ships like bullets," explained Dr. Kevin Lang during a technical briefing with Earth Command. "Cheap, simple, and designed to cause maximum damage before being destroyed." The alien manufacturing philosophy was based on creating durable, expensive vessels that could operate for centuries. They could not compete with an enemy that treated starships as disposable ammunition. Captain Helen Torres had perfected the art of kamikaze warfare to a degree that terrified alien commanders. Her squadron specialized in suicide attacks that took out enemy capital ships through sheer determination and explosive fury. "Incoming human fighters," reported the sensor operator aboard Admiral Thexnar's latest flagship. 20 vessels approaching, at maximum attack speed. "Intercept them," Thexnar ordered wearily. He had been through this scenario dozens of times. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "they are not attempting to avoid our defensive fire. They are flying directly into our weapons." This was Helen's new tactic, Instead of dodging enemy fire, her pilots flew straight through it, accepting casualties in order to close range more quickly. Half her squadron died in the approach, but the survivors penetrated the alien defenses and destroyed the flagship. Admiral Thexanar died in that attack, along with most of his command staff. His replacement lasted 3 days before a human boarding party captured his ship by walking through an airlock without environmental suits. How did they survive in hard vacuum? The new admiral demanded before he was taken prisoner. Humans can hold their breath for a long time, Captain Nick Johnson explained as his Marines secured the alien bridge. Also, we modified our blood chemistry to resist decompression effects. The process has a 60% fatality rate, but the survivors can operate in space for up to 10 minutes. The psychological breaking point came when the Council's most secure facility was penetrated by a force that should not have existed. Deep Space Station Omega was located inside a spatial anomaly that made normal travel impossible. It was protected by reality itself. Lieutenant Commander Evans somehow flew his fighter through the anomaly and broadcast his most devastating message yet. "Hello again, Galactic Council." His cheerful voice echoed through every communication system in the galaxy. "This is Chris Evans broadcasting from inside your super-secret base that does not officially exist. I have a message from the people of Earth. The panic that followed this transmission caused the complete collapse of Council command structure. If humans could reach a base protected by spatial anomalies, they could reach anywhere in the universe. People of the